Hey guys, time for something a little different. Looks like a TV, right? Well, what we have here is what we have here is a GE TV that's been modified for something rather interesting and of historical note. It's from the first arcade video game, Computer Space, which is based on, well, maybe it's the first programmed computer game ever made. So it was originally created on a mainframe computer. Somebody sort of distilled the logic down to its core and hardwired it into computer chips. And for a monitor, they use a modified GE TV. So that's what this is. I do not have the whole game. I have this and a couple burned out power supplies. The owner, I believe, said it was working to some extent at some point, but the screen went dead, so he asked me to take a look at it. Curiously, so this was a few months back. More recently, I was contacted by somebody else who also has one that would also like to get their screen looked at. Going to be some challenges to this. I have gotten a lot of help from the community. So it was from the early 70s. Came in this crazy looking fiberglass cabinet that came in a few different colors, but not a whole lot were made. And you imagine even fewer have survived and are working. And they have some value because of the rarity, the historical nature of them, and so on. But at the time, of course, there were no arcade games, there were no home computers, there were no computer monitors per se, so they took this. I've seen the game before, but I never saw what was actually inside of it for the screen, and when he brought it over, I was quite amused to see that, yeah, they just took a GE portable TV and took the back off and modified it and wired it in. They left it looking like a TV, the handle and all, and it even has still the knob for the UHF tuner. So, I think some of these controls are bypassed. If brightness and contrast still work, they must have been accessible somehow from the front of the game, or else you have to take the whole thing apart to change the brightness, which seems like it'd be a bit annoying. So, as I said, the community has been a great help to me. I've got notes and some correspondence from a gentleman who gave me some pointers and some advice. And I've got a variety of service info, like the SAMs for the actual TV, but also some specific stuff for Computer Space. And the owner included some service info. I believe we've got the schematic and the board layout. It's my understanding they used a few different versions of this chassis for different production runs. I don't know for how long they made this game. Let's say it's a few years. But anyways, we got to figure out which I've got. So this is for the S3. It's dated May of 71. I'll have to poke around in here and see exactly what we have. Bridge tube is a 16 CWP4A, so it's a 16-inch black and white CRT. So it's GE, and from this era, that means Compactron tube, so it's loaded with them. We also have a realistic lifetime warranty tube. It'll probably have a some gold pins on it. Now, if you know anything about GE back then, they weren't known for making the highest quality stuff. People rag continuously about Philco Predictas. These are worse. I've restored a couple coaxial sets from around 1960, which, yeah, is earlier than this, and those were not the greatest. I've done a Portacolor I showed you guys. That's closer to this era. Again, not the greatest quality. But they did pioneer the Compactrons, because Compactrons, it's a tube with typically 2 or more sort of tubes contained inside of it. So for example, if it's for vertical, it might be the vertical oscillator and the vertical output all inside of one tube, or this is probably the horizontal oscillator and the horizontal output all in one tube. So all told, we might have 10 tubes. But tubes are mostly multifunctional. Obviously, that little guy is the single function tube. We've got 2 tubes in the tuner, but I think all the rest are compactrons. Now they also use circuit boards, and this, well, I was going to say early days, but they were making circuit boards in the 50s, so they've been around for a while by the time of this. But I can immediately see this, well, because at the back of the set-off, probably, it's not really supported, and it is sagged. So I'm going to be, and it's phenolic, I'm going to be very wary of working on this. Now there are some unfortunate modifications they made to have it work with this game, and that's going to be, I think, the biggest challenge. One, I got to figure out where some of these wires go to. For instance, we have an orange wire just going to nothing. I found out from the owner that when he was taking it apart, he accidentally cut this, which is the anode lead, right to the not very well secured high voltage rectifier tube. See what I mean about this GE quality? Flyback's not even in an enclosure. It's this little thing down here. It's just sitting there. I'm even afraid to take the tubes out for fear of cracking the board. But anyways, we're going to have to replace this anode lead. This isn't high voltage wired. It's just, I think, spliced and has electrical tape wrapped around it, so that's one issue. And you can see how tiny things had gotten, too, with black and white TVs. It's just a minuscule yoke. Very skinny neck on the CRT, not much of a socket here. So everything is on the, I was going to say chintzy side, but fragile. There we go. As opposed to, I'm used to working on sets from the 40s where everything is heavy gauge steel and reinforced, and you could drop it and it'd be fine. This, I'm afraid to touch anything practically. But here's the plan. Oh yeah, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So one of the modifications I need to work or deal with is this. So this is where the signals came in, UHF, VHF. And it would have originally been attached to the back of the plastic enclosure, I'm sure. Well, that's why they feed the signal in from the computer game. And I needed to support it somewhere, so they threw a hose clamp around this electrolytic cap that's mounted to the circuit board. I want to replace this, but if I replace this and put some caps on the circuit board, then this has no home, nothing to attach to. So, a few thoughts. One being to restuff this, but if I say cut this open and put new caps inside and put the cover back on, I need to really secure this cover down with a JB Weld or whatever. Might be, although I don't like doing it, I have done it, is to uncrimp the bottom of the can. Or I've seen one gentleman who carefully filed around the edge to remove the crimp and then take this off, which means you have the entire can with its structural integrity intact, and put the new caps in and then plop this down. So that's probably what I'll end up doing. But here's the other thing in this project that may be of interest to some of you. So it's a circuit board. Most of the work I need to do is, yeah, it's fairly new, so it's probably got Mylar type caps. But I definitely want to pull the board and go over everything, test tubes, put all fresh tubes in there, and double check all the resistors and replace the electrolytic, stuff like that. But it's all on a circuit board. So you may recall I bought myself one of these guys for Christmas. I haven't opened it yet. I haven't used it yet. Been waiting for something like this to come along. So I'm going to try out the Hecco FR301 desoldering gun when I work on this circuit board. I'm going to review the service info. I have this, which is just a page or two. I was sent some scans. I think I have a copy of the SAMs. I want to double check the chassis revision and carefully extricate this. Test the CRT too. So it looks like this. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I was hoping this wasn't the case, but this is just a tube socket. It's probably the same tube sockets they're using down there, like for this guy, and they just shoved it onto the end of the CRT. So I'm guessing CRT bases at this point in history were the same pinouts as a 7-pin miniature tube, and then they just shoved the wires in there. In other words, it's not a official CRT socket. Man, yeah, wow, is that tiny. And they shoved a resistor in there too. Yeah, look at that thing. You know, pull this miniature tube out of here. So yeah, the neck diameter is the same as a 9-pin tube, and that base pinout is the same spacing as a 7-pin miniature tube. Alrighty, well, we will have to be extra careful around that. I think this CRT is a little hard to source. I don't typically work on stuff that's this new. I looked on the ETF website. I don't think they had any for sale, but I imagine if I ask around, I could probably find one. So the curious thing about this, if you get into collecting, is that stuff from the 40s, early 50s is more common than stuff from the 60s and 70s often, because it was plastic. They were disposable. We got into that era of the disposable electronics, circuit boards, plastic, and when these sets died, they were just thrown away. The early sets were pieces of furniture, so people hung on to them. So it can be a little challenging to find stuff for this stuff sometimes. Let me show you the power supplies next, because, well, I don't know what happened to this set over the years, but, man, there were some ugly repairs. I personally haven't seen the logic boards, but I've seen them on YouTube videos. There are YouTube videos out there showing this set, demonstrating how it works, showing the boards. But they're all powered from just this. I thought, oh, this must just be an auxiliary supply for some part of it. But no, I believe this powers all of the digital stuff, and this little dinky thing is a 3-amp supply. And really, it's only 15 watts, but at any rate. So there should be a power transformer on this and on this. So these are your originals that were butchered. Probably tried to be repaired, so that'll be your pass regulator there. Electrolytic must have went south and somebody threw 3 together and cobbled stuff. It's horrible. Horrible, crude, ugly, old repairs. So that's one. And here's another one. Somewhat better, but again, hack repairs, got charred. It's miserable looking. But we have the board. I have the schematic, so I already ordered up parts. We can completely blow through, just replace everything. There's an LM305. It's probably the voltage reference. I might try to save that. I believe those are a little tough to get these days. It's 1978. Between the two of these, hopefully one is still good. I'm not sure what the thing next to it is. But yeah, I mean, heck, we could probably replace the whole thing with just a single 5-volt 3-amp regulator. Alright, we need socket adapter number 6. CR70. Again, you can see how tiny that little thing is. Let's get this all rigged up. Because that CRT base is so dinky, I don't want to put any extra unnecessary strain on it. So let's get this set up and support the cable as best we can. So go on like so. There's no keyway on it. There's one missing pin, so you can line it up pretty readily. Alrighty, it's a little hard to get everything in frame. Turn on, get up to 6.3 volts. CRT base. Yep, she is glowing. Alright, let's focus on the tester. Okay, tester shorts. Good, cutoff. Oh, we have excellent cutoff control. And excellent emissions. And very solid life test too. So, yeah, I suspected this was good. Yeah. Got to imagine this, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say it was used less than a TV. I don't know. I don't know where this came from. Who knows how much it was used. But we appear to be good on that front. Alright, now taking this out. The board, actually, while I was moving this around, was starting to slide out already. Oh, don't tell me. Come on, gee, really? It looks like they hardwired the yoke. The wires are going right into the circuit board, and they go right, and they're soldered to these lugs. I don't want to take the yoke off. Yeah, you can loosen up the screw and take the thing off. So I gotta decide what's more work. To unsolder, resolder these 4 wires, or take the yoke off. I'm gonna take the wires off. Because my goal is to have the board on its own and put all this stuff somewhere else. To ready to put it back together. So I'll get to work on that. I hope the tuner unplugs. That's separate. I mean, yeah, back then I imagine the intent was you leave everything wired up, you slide this out and you work on it. You got enough lead length. I'm not doing that. Not with this stuff in the way. Look how darkened that plastic is. That's not dirt. That's, you know, you can be optimistic. Hey, maybe that's spray paint from when they built the cabinet. But oh, holy moly! Yeah, something bad happened to this thing. Oof. But it looks like it was repaired long ago after whatever was really bad happened. Check that out. It's a little bit darkened around all the tube bases, but it is charred around this one. And the board is flat out cracked here. And it must have taken out some traces. We've got a wire jumpered across here. We got some bridges here. This looks pretty dubious in here. These wires probably are original, but again, not the greatest quality. This board is really warped too. Oh man. It'd be great to snap my fingers and have a modern fiberglass board and just transfer everything onto it, but it's not the case. But yeah, that I may epoxy some reinforcement strips or something. Every time I move this board, the whole thing is flexing like this. There's a lot of weight on that, especially with this cap on here and flyback and all that, and that the whole thing is really sagged down. Oh, well, there's a good reason for that as I'm looking at this. So they have these 2 slide plastic rails that keep the board up like that. There is 0 support in the middle. So if nothing else, yeah, the component leads stick down. So if I put a block in there and I try to push the board in, it's going to snag on it. But maybe after I put the board in, I'll slide in some type of supporting foam or something. Did a little more looking around this set. So they added these brackets obviously to mount inside the game console. They just put 3 screws directly through this, which I assume is ABS styrene type plastic. They put some lock nuts on the other side, which drove them right through the tube chart label, unfortunately, but I can see it as an SE chassis. part of the tube chart's gone. I got it ripped off. This one. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, this is a portable TV. It had a plastic back. These can't be part of the original TV. But there's a TV label here. Oh, no, this was added by the console makers. Okay, that's cool, because it says video input. Oh, so they repurposed the UHF VHF input to be composite video and sound. Okay, so they got a little chart here, and they explain the controls: vertical linearity, vertical hold, vertical size, horizontal size, standard stuff. What a wacky thing. Well, I got it out, but I'll tell you, it was not easy. Everything was hardwired in. What's particularly annoying was the connections going to the tuner, especially knowing that it's not even used. So I'm going to talk to the owner about that, because I have some thoughts about that. So the reason the tuner is still connected is that this is a budget set, no power transformer. It's series wired tube filaments, and there's 2 tubes in the tuner, so it completes the filament circuit. You can see it right here, VHF tuner. One end goes to ground, and then goes through all the other tubes into the AC line. Well, what I propose doing, since it's just wasting heat and doing nothing else, completely disconnect it, maybe even remove it from the cabinet, allow a little more ventilation, and just replace it with a power resistor or two to complete the continuity with the tube filaments will no longer be. We don't need any of this stuff because the signal is injected through the modifications here. So one of these wires, you can see they look new, a little bit different than the other wires. It's these thinner ones. One of these is sound and one of these is video, and they're probably going right into the grid of the video amp or something like that. So for that matter, we don't need the IF tubes, I don't think. So that'll be interesting to see where exactly they injected it. So what I'm getting at is I don't think we need that tube or that tube or that tube or the detector diode. It might be injecting right there at TP3 to trace out the wiring, and similarly the sound might go right to the grid of the audio output tube. This is it. This is a schematic for the whole side. There's not a whole lot to it. I was curious, does this even have a voltage doubler? I don't think so. Because the highest voltage in this appears to be 150. Although if you just have a half-wave rectifier off the AC line, can you really get 150? Full wave I could see, or bridge. But just one diode? But that is what it looks like. See, one side of the AC line essentially goes to ground through L401, and the other goes through L402, and power switch, and a fusistor. Well, one side's going right to the tube filaments, one's going to a fusistor. And we got some bleeder resistors, some filter caps, and those are our various power supplies. Yeah. There's a whole horizontal circuit right there. Pretty simple. Is it really the whole horizontal sync circuit? Phase detector with just that? I think there'd be at least a couple diodes in there. Horizontal oscillator, horizontal output, rectifier, damper. And there's our vertical, there's our boost supply, keyed AGC, And by the time this came out, they had black and white really, really well figured out. So very economical basic circuit. And, talk about months being minimal. Is 2 IF stages. That's all you got. And they're both contained in one tube. So just one tube for the entire IF. Crazy. And a solid state detector diode. This is the newest set. It may sound crazy. This is the newest set I've ever worked on. I do have a Portacolor from the late 60s. I didn't do a whole lot with that. Otherwise, 1960 was the newest set I ever worked on. This is like 70, 71, I think. Anyways, let's take a look at this board a little bit more. So, no point in sugarcoating it. It's pretty crummy, not just the way it was made, but it's seen some life. Wires chewed up in some places. I don't know if that's age. I don't know if that's critters. I don't know if that's abrasion. But it seems like most likely a critter because it went after the cloth-covered wiring and not the plastic. Some stuff looks a little sketchy. Like the way this diode's mounted right next to a power resistor seems like a really bad idea. And that one leg is going through a hole in the board and it's soldered under the underside. That doesn't seem right. I think these wires go to the speaker. I think the original speaker's gone or something like that. So notice there's no speaker in here. It's a different speaker. It's mounted in the arcade cabinet somewhere. That could very well be a paper cap inside that ceramic tube. I'll be replacing that. Other caps are this style, which I think are plastic film, and there's even at least one Mylar cap in there. Get some surface corrosion. Flyback, a little itty bitty flyback. It's got some cracks in the donut. Corrosion here. We could have some tin whiskers lurking inside. So I post a photo online, and some of you folks seem to be familiar with this chassis, or chassis is very similar looking. And somebody said originally these had a rubber donut in the middle with adhesive that was supposed to stick to the bottom of the board, and when you slide it in, it would give it some support. And often they'd fall off and get lost, which would account for this being so deformed. So I should replace that with something. Now, because I disconnected everything, it's going to be a little tough for me to do work and then try it out. I did unsolder the wires going to the yoke. So I'll figure something out. I can't do my usual stuff with like a test CRT or something because of the different CRT socket, and I just don't have any like jigs I could use with this, not readily. So I think I'll just dive in and just start going through it starting from the AC input and going through it. I believe this is the AC in, polarized, plugs in down there. But as far as these cut wires go, I gotta consult again with my email chain I got from somebody who's worked on some of these before, is that the power for the digital circuits for that 5-volt supply taps into the TV power. So I think some of these wires might have been cut because they've spliced into power the arcade machine. But anyways, what I planned, so after I work this up, obviously I don't have the arcade game, but I'll try to inject composite video for my test setup. Hot chassis, you want to be careful. Of course, I'll power this off an isolation transformer, but I want to be a little careful. I might capacitively couple my injected signal. I don't want to toast my test equipment.